My name is Leslie Connell.
I'm Christian Coronado.
I'm Michael Delgado.
Hello, I'm Ashley Guzman, and today we will be covering the Department of Justice's antitrust lawsuit against Apple. In this presentation, we will be including the overview of the lawsuit, legal accusations against Apple regarding antitrust laws, Apple's monopolistic tendencies, potential future implications of this lawsuit, and the impact of this lawsuit. The United States Department of Justice announced on March 2024 that they filed a lawsuit against Apple, formally accusing the company of behaving like a monopoly, allegedly using monopolistic practices and limiting competition from competitors. Recently, on March 2024, the European Union fined Apple 1.84 billion euros, which is the equivalent to 2 billion US dollars, for thwarting competition from their music streaming rival Spotify, making it the third largest antitrust fine in the European Union history. The United States has the third largest smartphone market after China and India, while also being the least competitive market based on HHI. For those that don't know, HHI is a commonly accepted measure of market concentration. The United States smartphone market has an HHI above 4,300, indicating a highly concentrated market. Apple controls the largest market share since the iPhone is the most used smartphone among American consumers. To go further into the subject, I will pass it on to Christian.
Thank you, Ashley. So now I will speak about the legal accusations against Apple Inc. regarding antitrust laws. Apple is sued by DOJ over the Sherman Antitrust Act. What is the Sherman Antitrust Act? This is the first federal statute that prohibits activities that restrict interstate commerce and competition in the marketplace. This outlaws any contract, conspiracy, or combination of business monopolistic practices. A monopolistic market is a theoretical condition that describes a market where only one company may offer products and services to the public. DOJ is claiming that Apple exercises its monopoly power to extract more money from consumers, developers, content creators, artists, publishers, small businesses, and merchants, among others. Through this monopolization lawsuit, the Justice Department and state attorneys general are seeking relief to restore competition to these vital markets on behalf of the American public. This will enable to have a competitive market, which is what the government prefers. Apple is also allegedly limiting other competitors by not allowing them to compete with Apple software. For example, the usage of NFC payments, which we all enjoy using. Here's where I will introduce Leslie Cano, and she will speak more in depth about this topic.
Thank you, Christian. Indeed, Apple has employed several strategies to maintain a competitive advantage and make it harder for others to compete. One area of concern is Apple's control over NFC technology on its devices. Apple has restricted access to NFC chip in iPhones, limiting the ability of third-party payment services to offer tap-to-pay functionality on iOS devices. Critics argue that this restriction stifles competition by preventing alternative payment solutions from accessing the iPhone's NFC capabilities and forcing users to use Apple Pay. As many of us know, if you use Android, text messages show up on iPhones with the green bubble instead of blue. The lawsuit claims Apple makes Android messages appear lower in quality and limits functions, leading users to believe that competition is worse. It also minimizes the quality of images or data being sent from an Android device. The suit also says Apple's tie of its iCloud storage to its iPhone and iPads violate the Sherman Antitrust Act. It also condemns Apple's practices violates the act because it discriminates against other cloud storage companies and anti-competitive practice made illegally by Apple's market power. In addition, to use an Apple Watch, you need to have an iPhone, as they won't connect with Android phones. Given this, the DOJ said Apple uses smartwatches, a costly accessory, to stop its customers from choosing other phones. It is advertising only its products and not allowing for competitors to be compatible with Apple devices. Overall, these practices have led to the Apple's lawsuit, and there may be potential future implications, which is what Michael will be talking about next.
Thank you, Leslie. Now, these are some potential implications, but keep in mind the case is still ongoing. Now, on the government side, where they win or lose the case, they might consider adding some regulatory intervention. They could create or update rules and regulations to ensure fairness and provide transparency. They could also implement investigations, compliance monitoring, and enforcement for violators. And they could provide education with guidance, training, or resources to help companies understand and comply with laws and regulations. Now, on Apple's side, if they lose, they may potentially need to change their business practices. Apple may have to revise policies, guidelines, and practices involving apps and developers. They may also be required to eliminate self-preferencing practices in terms of visibility, promotion, and access. Also, they might have to provide fair treatment to competitors by providing equal access and reducing barriers for other products and developers when it comes to interacting with Apple's platforms. Now, on the next slide, I'll be talking about the impacts the lawsuits could have. As I mentioned, Apple would have to make some changes in its business models. Its revenue streams might be affected by these new changes, and its market dominance could suffer some as well. The impact on consumers could be beneficial with increased competition, with lower prices, a wider variety of apps, better interaction, specifically between Apple and non-Apple users, and more options to choose from in the smartphone market. The impact for developers would include shift in business strategies, such as adapting their approach to app development and distribution, along with the potential for increased revenue opportunities. Overall, the smartphone market could benefit with more innovation. Now back to Ashley for the conclusion.
Thank you, Michael. Because this lawsuit is still ongoing, experts predict there will be little settled between Apple and the Department of Justice short term. Because antitrust lawsuits generally take longer to settle due to their complexity, it is predicted that it may take anywhere between 3 to 5 years for a resolution to the lawsuit. Experts also predict that regulators from other countries may sue Apple for additional antitrust violations. But Apple will continue to defend themselves legally if more antitrust lawsuits are presented against them. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening.